All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're not just doing some boring A to Z list of 30-plus legendary beasts today. Instead, we're going to unlock the actual hidden human concepts that these creatures represent. By the end of this, you're going to see that these monsters, they're really just mirrors reflecting our deepest fears, our highest hopes, and honestly, our desperate attempts to understand the world around us.
So, here's our map for today. We'll kick things off with Section 1, Origins of the Mythical. Then we're heading into 2, Beasts of Chaos, 3, Guardians of the Sacred, 4, Hybrids and the Unnatural, 5, Mirrors of Human Nature, and we'll wrap it all up with 6, The Endless Cycle. Let's get right to it.
Section 1, Origins of the Mythical, explaining the unexplainable. To really get this, we have to understand that these creatures weren't just fantasy cooked up for campfire entertainment. No, they were anchored to the very real and honestly pretty terrifying survival experiences of ancient peoples, trying to explain things they just couldn't comprehend.
Think about the unknown realities that birthed these iconic monsters. Take the centaur, right? Half human, half horse. This idea most likely originated from the absolute shock that settled agricultural societies felt when they encountered horse-riding nomads for the very first time. I mean, imagine seeing that. Then, over in North America, you have the terrifying Wendigo. This wasn't just a spooky story. It was born from the brutal, deeply isolating winters faced by Algonquian-speaking tribes. It served as a stark warning against the very real threat of starvation and the absolute taboo of cannibalism. And what about the Kraken? That was basically early Scandinavian sailors desperately trying to make sense of giant squids and massive ship-swallowing whirlpools out in the unforgiving ocean depths.
Moving on to Section 2, Beasts of Chaos, Nature's Untamed Wrath. You know, humans have just always needed a physical way to embody the sheer chaotic forces that threaten to wipe us out.
What's super fascinating here is how we can actually categorize this chaos across entirely different regions. Look at Greek mythology. They had the Hydra, which perfectly represented unbeatable regenerating obstacles. You know the drill. Cut off one head and 2 more grow right back from the swamps of Lerna. In Norse mythology, you've got the giant wolf Fenrir, who literally embodies total apocalyptic destruction. I mean, this guy is destined to swallow the chief god Odin whole during Ragnarok. And as we just talked about, the Kraken was the terrifying face of the crushing, unpredictable deep sea. We just desperately needed a physical face for these unstoppable forces of nature.
But here's the thing, we didn't just accept defeat. The crucial takeaway is that humanity didn't just invent these chaotic monsters, we also invented incredibly clever and sometimes totally unnatural ways to defeat or bind them. Hercules couldn't just slash the Hydra, right? He actually had to use fire to cauterize the stumps so they wouldn't grow back. And the Norse gods? They couldn't hold Fenrir with just normal iron chains. They had to bind him with Gleipnir, a magical ribbon crafted from impossible things like the roots of a mountain, and, believe it or not, the sound of a cat's footsteps. So cool. And Perseus? He couldn't even look at the snake-haired Gorgon Medusa since her gaze turned men to stone, so he brilliantly used her own reflection against her.
Okay, Section 3, Guardians of the Sacred, Protecting the Divine. Now we're shifting our focus from beasts that destroy things to beasts that protect the sacred boundaries of our physical and spiritual worlds. So, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? The legendary Sphinx, the creature with a lion's body and a human's head, famously guarded the Greek city of Thebes with this exact riddle. It wasn't about brute strength at all. It was a test of the mind, and the Sphinx threatened to devour absolutely anyone who failed to get it right.
The answer, of course, was humanity itself. A human crawls on all 4s as an infant, walks upright on 2 legs in adulthood, and uses a cane as a sort of 3rd leg in old age. This perfectly proves that some of our greatest mythical guardians tested our wit and our intellect way more than just our physical might.
And this brings up the really interesting duality of guardians. Take the Japanese Kitsune, those highly intelligent, shape-shifting fox spirits. They're actually split into 2 types. You have the Zenko, which are revered, wise protectors and bringers of good fortune tied to Inari shrines. But on the flip side, you've got the Yako. These are mischievous, wild foxes known to trick humans and lead them straight into danger. It just goes to show how easily the protector can become the trickster.
This human need for guardians literally shows up everywhere. Think about Cerberus, that terrifying 3-headed dog with a serpent for a tail. He guards the ultimate boundary, making sure the dead stay in the underworld and the living stay out. Then you have griffins,
perfectly balancing the earthly lion and the heavenly eagle, standing watch over divine, priceless treasures. And even the Yeti, often dismissed today as just some cryptid, the Yeti is actually deeply revered by Sherpa and Tibetan communities as a spiritual protector of the untamed Himalayan wilderness. Make no mistake, these protectors demanded deep, deep respect.
Moving right along to Section 4, Hybrids and the Unnatural, the Clash of Natures. This is where completely disparate parts of nature get stitched together into something entirely new.
Now, before we look at those stitched-together beasts, just consider how the exact same base creature can be interpreted in completely opposite ways depending on where you are in the world. It is truly incredible to see how a massive reptilian beast symbolized chaotic, fire-breathing greed and treasure hoarding over in the West, yet that exact same base concept symbolized benevolent, watertight wisdom and agricultural prosperity over in the East.
And that brings us to the actual fusions, like the Chimera. We're talking about a monstrous Greek hybrid with a lion's body, a goat's head literally rising out of its back, and a serpent for a tail. This beast, which was famously attacked from the air and slain by Bellerophon riding the winged horse Pegasus, perfectly embodies the pure, unadulterated chaos of incongruous parts. In fact, it is such an iconic symbol of the unnatural that modern science literally uses the term chimera today to describe organisms made of entirely genetically distinct cells.
And just consider some of these other fusions. You've got the Greek Minotaur, a tragic half-man, half-bull, born of a curse and locked away in a labyrinth. The Persian Manticore, combining a lion, a human face, and a scorpion's tail, known far and wide as a terrifying man-eater. And the Harpy, part bird, part woman, shrieking down from the skies as an agent of relentless punishment. These combinations aren't just there to be scary. They symbolize the intense, constant tension between our civilized human traits and our most predatory, base instincts.
Which brings us to Section 5, Mirrors of Human Nature, Reflections of Ourselves. Honestly, this is probably my absolute favorite archetype because this is where we really see how these creatures serve as giant moral warnings about our own flaws.
Take the mechanics of the golem from Jewish folklore. It beautifully shows our deep desire to create protectors, but also the incredibly strict moral responsibility we hold over what we bring into existence. The lore goes that you mold a humanoid figure from clay, and you write the Hebrew word emet, meaning truth, on its forehead to animate it. But if you start losing control of it, you simply erase the very first letter to spell met, meaning death, to deactivate it. It's just a striking, brilliant mirror of our own power and responsibility.
And remember that Wendigo we were talking about earlier, described as this gaunt, skeletal figure with antlers? It wasn't just a spooky monster hiding out in the snowy woods, it was a hardcore moral lesson. It physically embodied the absolute horrors of insatiable greed. The folklore warned against succumbing to base desires, because selfishness and a bottomless appetite could literally turn a human into a monster, totally ruining an entire community in the process.
Similarly, think about werewolves and centaurs. They both represent the exact same internal conflict. We created these half-human beings cursed to transform under a full moon or driven by total wild abandon, specifically to explore the terrifying idea of losing control. They perfectly reflect our everyday struggle to maintain our intellectual reasoning over that violent, untamed animal lurking inside all of us.
All right, let's head into our final part here. Section 6, the endless cycle, eternity and renewal. Let's see how ancient traditions viewed the massive, mind-bending concept of eternity.
The Ouroboros, which you'll find in ancient Egyptian and Greek iconography, is just such a striking image. It's a serpent or a dragon forever eating its own tail. And this brilliantly illustrates a really profound idea that life and death, creation and destruction, they aren't just a straight line. They are perpetually linked in an infinite, interconnected cycle of renewal.
And of course, we can't talk about cycles without mentioning the phoenix, this radiant bird of gold and scarlet that lives for hundreds of years, only to build a nest of spices, burst into flames, and then rise completely anew from its own ashes. You know, much like the phoenix itself, human myths never truly die. They are continually reborn, shifting their shapes and being reimagined over and over for new generations.
So we've seen how unknown nomads, the terrifying deep ocean, and the darkest parts of human greed birthed the legends of the past. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to take away from this explainer today. If folklore is really just a mirror reflecting our greatest fears and the mysteries of our time, what mythical creatures are we unconsciously creating right now today?